All right, I've got 6:30. We'll go ahead and get started. This is our January 16th, 2018 committee meeting, City of Erlanger. I'll start with a quick prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer, and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that affect the residents, businesses, staff, and friends of the City of Erlanger. Please continue to remind us that all that we do here this evening, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you. We ask these things in your name. Amen. All right. We've got a full agenda this evening. First up, we've got under Codes Building and Zoning, we've got the Dries development. I just wanted to take the opportunity real quickly to clarify something this evening. This is our council committee meeting. This is basically our brainstorming session or a caucus meeting to discuss the issues that the city is facing. And we've given Dries the opportunity to come this evening and help clarify some of the things that were brought up in the Kenton County Planning Commission meeting recently. This is not a public hearing. This is not, there won't be a decision tonight. There won't be a zoning decision tonight. That will happen at a future meeting that has adequate notice, the proper legal notice that's required for a public hearing. So this is an opportunity for Dries to speak. This will also be an opportunity for you to speak and share your comments, concerns, and questions. So with that, did I cover everything there?
Yeah, I guess I just want to add a little more procedural history for council, and I would probably request council make a motion to help clean up the record a little bit. KCPC, we just received the minutes literally an hour ago. Dave emailed them to me from KCPC. So from that receiving of the minutes is when our shot clock starts that we have to act either up or down. Obviously, KCPC, the staff report recommended it. Andy from PDS is in the back. But KCPC voted the zone change down. Now, what's interesting is normal state statute allows 90 days for us to make the decision. However, and kind of a weird quirk, the zone that actually has been applied for and the overlay zone that has been applied for has reduced that time period to 45 days. So the city does have to act within 45 days of today. Normally, once the Kenton County Planning Commission makes a recommendation one way or the other, a city really has three options. They can vote it up or down based on the record that is in front of them, not necessarily make a new record. Two, they can argue it based on the record. Or three, they can declare a public hearing. And where my concern is we're kind of in the gray area right now because Dries is going to speak for informational purposes. My understanding is that the council or mayor can certainly allow people to speak tonight, and it appears like there's a lot of people who are willing to speak tonight. So I think while this was never intended to be a public hearing, I think in the last 24 hours it's starting to morph into what would seem like a public hearing, but we have not given adequate notice, and we have to provide due process to all parties. So what my suggestion would be is that council would need to make some type of motion saying that we would incorporate tonight into a public hearing and that we will advertise properly and give notice of a public hearing sometime within the next 45 days.
Here, there we go. I would make a motion that we schedule a public hearing on this so that we can hear input tonight and that the information received tonight be incorporated into evidence at the public hearing without necessary repetition.
Would it be appropriate to do it at the February 6th regular council meeting?
That makes sense to me, sure.
Okay.
My experience tells me to try to combine that public hearing with everything else that's on a normal agenda a regularly scheduled city council meeting would be too much. So I think you're better off doing a separate hearing.
Okay. Should we do it at the the next council committee meeting, or should we set a
can do
special
that.
date specifically?
You can do it on a normal committee meeting.
So that would be February 18th?
20th, I think.
Yes. Okay, so February, yeah, okay, I had the first date wrong. February 20th, then we will have a hearing regarding this matter.
That's
here
the
in
motion
council
that has been made by Mr. Blankenship.
And what is said tonight will be incorporated into that hearing.
We've got a motion, we've got a second by Mr. Burke. Any discussion? Go ahead.
One moment. If we have 45 days, when are we going to actually make the decision here? Because we needed to have it at a council meeting to make the decision. So are we going to have a special council meeting that night?
You could certainly do a special meeting after, I'm sorry, I'm not used to these microphones yet. You certainly can do a special meeting at the conclusion of the committee meeting on February, what is that, 20th? Because the 45 days starts today.
Yeah, the intention would be that we would vote at that meeting.
After the public hearing,
Mhm.
then we have a special council meeting to vote. Is that enough time for everybody to make a decision? Weigh pros and cons?
I think so, because we're hearing things tonight.
Okay.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Excuse me. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, motion carried. So with that, Mr. Hahn, were you going to introduce this? No?
We have here tonight with us Ben Taylor and Matt Nation from Grease Company. All right, I apologize. Matt Maines and Ben Taylor here with the Drees Company to talk about their proposed plan for the property on Narrows Road. From the hearing from January the 4th, I believe it was, at the public hearing. So they're here. Also here is Andy Vedekovich from Planning Development Services, if you all would have any questions of him from the public hearing that night. So Andy is back there as well. So, gentlemen.
Thank you, Dave. Again, my name is Ben Taylor with the Drees Company. We're 211 Grandview Drive in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. So I'm prepared to speak with you tonight. I appreciate the time to speak with you, Mayor and council members, about the List property and our proposal for the site. So about 2 weeks ago, we did present this, as the Mayor mentioned, to Kenton County Planning Commission, and had a staff report that preceded that, but this is pretty much the same presentation that was put forth that evening. So a little Drees history. We were founded in 1928, so this year we are celebrating our 90th anniversary. And the first home was built here in northern Kentucky in Wilder, and we've since grown to 11 cities across the country, and build everything from condos to luxury homes in those markets. We're very proud of our history and the fact that we've won what's called the Triple Crown of the home building industry and these 3 awards: the National Builder of the Year, National Housing Quality Award, and America's Best Builder. Drees and the city of Erlanger have a long partnership. It was part of our presentation today at a luncheon we had with the company about some of Ralph's activities within the city. His first home and subdivision was actually in the city of Erlanger. So his father started the company and built in Wilder when Ralph split off and did some of his own work. This was the first home that was built in Fairwood Hills, sort of north in the city. And Ralph has instilled within his employees in the company a yearning to be involved in the community and engaged, and we do care about the legacy that we leave. There are several civic projects throughout the years that Ralph has contributed to that don't have anything to do with development, such as memorials, restoration projects, and so he cares a lot about this community. This is some of the work that we've worked with the city on in recent years. My pointer works. Here's the Lakemont community, Sherborne, and Flagship Park. So we've set aside almost 83 acres of land that is controlled by the city of Erlanger. Some of that's passive with trails and access to Doe Run Lake. And then at Flagship Park you have active uses with pavilions, playgrounds. There's also a playground within the Sherborne community. So there's been a lot of partnering with council, mayor, and administrators over the years here in Erlanger. What I'm here to speak about tonight is the List Farm. I'm sure most of you are familiar with, but this is Narrows Road here, Brightleaf, Turkey Foot Road, and then Nelson Road here that intersects. So there's approximately 70 acres there, surrounded predominantly by single-family subdivisions that have been developed over the years. The List family purchased the farm in 1949 and had farming activities until recent years when they moved to other parts of the county. One of the important connections here that I'll talk about later, while I have the larger map up, is Glades Park here, and then the connection down to Flagship Park here, which we plan to accomplish with our proposal. This just zooms in a little bit. It's an aerial of the site. We always look at a site and try to see what the natural features are to guide our planning decisions. There are some slopes here that work their way down to a creek that sort of bisects the site. This all heads down and is part of the watershed that goes into the Doe Run Lake. So there are a lot of opportunities for views as we looked at integrating our homes with the site. So before we begin planning a community, we look at more than just the zoning and what's around it. We also look at demographics and housing. And when coming up with the community product, we look to market trends to guide our decisions. So this is sort of the most recent data I could find census-wise on Erlanger. What's interesting is there's about 30% of the population that's over the age of 50 in Erlanger. And we see that as an opportunity to provide a new type of housing or expand on what was offered in Lakemont so that people can stay in the city of Erlanger as they go through life cycles. Eventually people get tired of having the big two-story home, cleaning 4 bedrooms when you may have 1 or 2 people living in the home. So in the city of Erlanger, if you look at the MLS listings, there's 92 active, and there's 8 what I would consider lifestyle opportunities where there are services desired by an aging population. So things like lawn maintenance, snow pushing, maintenance of the exterior of the homes, that type of thing. There's very minimal options if you want to downsize or even have a similar sized home, but have these services offered and stay within the city. So we use that as we began our planning, and it's really why we approach this with the RCD, residential cluster development. The underlying zone is R1C, And we're utilizing this relatively new section of the zoning code to try to come up with a more creative solution that has a development plan that allows flexibility in design and how we site the buildings to take advantage of the attributes of the property and not destroy it in the process. So things like preserving the hillsides, staying away from the streams, and trying to focus the housing on the most usable portions of the site. We felt like the RCD allows that, and it also allows the attached housing, which I'll get into when I talk about the plan here. Something that came up in the public hearing the other night at the Planning Commission was a PUD zone. That's what Lakemont was zoned under. And really the reason we went with this is simply that we don't anticipate a commercial component, and that's really what the PUD goes a little step further than the RCD, where you can incorporate that into your plan. Since we don't have that, we went with the cluster development overlay. So this is our master plan that was submitted. And what we tried to do is design with the features of the site, avoiding that central valley and the stream that's there and most of the trees that exist on the site. We also looked at minimizing grading, trying to focus home sites and streets on the ridges that exist. And we believe this is what the intent of the RCD zone was set up for. So this plan is comprised of 112 single-family detached lots in these two areas. You have access here from Narrows and Nelson. That would be a four-way stop interchange. And then over here we have another access point across from Country. Also in the plan are 48 attached single-family homes, what we call townhomes. I'll show you a little bit more product information on that in a moment. There's 42% of the site that we left alone. It's about 30 acres. So everything you see that's not within one of the lot lines, all this area, the frontage along Narrows Road, will be incorporated into areas maintained by the homeowners association, utilized for the residents here and the community at large. I wanted to note that the home sites that are along this property line are deeper, in anticipation of preserving the tree line that exists there and to provide a larger buffer between the rear of the homes and that property line. So those are 150 feet deep. So what that should allow is a 50-foot separation, whereas if you went with the standard zone, you could get closer than that. There is a connection here, which I will note, from Mesa Drive, which is unfeasible based on the topography change between this street and where that street left off. So we talked to the city a little bit about that and our desire to have a waiver from trying to connect those. This slide goes a step further and highlights some of the pedestrian networks that we anticipate incorporating into the plan. There would be paved connections starting here, Country through the site, and we would have that network extend along the entire frontage. There'd be paved walks so that people could walk off of, have a safe space from Narrows Road to access Flagship Park and other neighborhoods, sort of connect the link, if you will. Also provide access here at the crosswalk at the four-way to Glades Park. So we're beginning to tie all the pieces to the puzzle together with access, not only for these residents, but other people who live in this area. And then within the site, we would have paved trails to a point back near the rear of the homes, and they would transition into mowed or mulch trails, depending on the topography, that loop through the site and basically connect all of the different streets and open spaces. And then we will handle all the stormwater here in an enlarged lake. There's an existing pond there that will be enlarged. We'll turn that into an amenity for the residents with seating, park areas, landscaping to make that a valuable asset to the community. What we've seen in our market studies and surveys is all of our home buyers, but specifically this buyer profile, who is more of an empty nester, the number one thing that they're looking for is trails. Access to nature, being able to get out and walk at the end of the day, take their pets out, and that's what we've mostly incorporated into this community. Then along Narrows Road, while it's not shown in this stage 1 plan, when we get to a stage 2 plan, that would have buffering, fencing, entrance monuments, and screening so that the homes that back up to Narrows Road would be buffered from that. So this is a summary of the concept plan. There's 160 homes there. 112 of those are patio homes, which are on 52 by 120-foot lots. This number right here is the minimum in the zone. What we have looked at is what's actually on the site. With some of the deeper lots that I mentioned, some of them that back up to open space, the average is actually around 7,700 square feet. Setbacks in the front would be 25, 10 total, 5 and 5 on side yards, 25-foot rear. Then the townhomes also have a 25-foot setback. Those are 30 to 37 feet wide, and I'll show you some more of that product information in a moment. Density is 2.2 units per acre. It's much lower than what the comp plan recommended on this site. I mentioned the open space, and there's approximately 5,100 lineal feet of public street in the community. So all the streets that I showed you in that plan would be maintained by the city. So these are some of the homes that are proposed on the single-family detached. So we have a broad range of architectural styles, materials, and all the homes have a 2-car front entry garage. A lot of the elevations incorporate porch features at the entry. And you get a very nice mixed, varied streetscape when you start to put these together within a community, and I'll show you in a moment. These are the floor plans of a couple of our best-selling models. This is the Clearwater, and this home's almost 70 feet deep. So there may be some misconception about the small lot, narrow house. Is that really just a cheap home? And I can assure you when I show you some of the prices that these are in fact very well-appointed homes. You can see the kitchen down here in the corner, set up as a sort of a gourmet area. Wide open living spaces here. We connect the dining, great room, and kitchen. And an important feature here is this outdoor living. So in almost all the homes, that's incorporated within the box. So you don't get large decks, gazebos, and that type of thing in the rear yard of the homes. In fact, the homeowner guidelines would restrict most of that as far as sheds, fencing, and anything you build in that rear space. So a lot of people put fireplaces and things out here. This becomes a place they're hanging out in the evening when we have nice weather, utilizing that space. All the homes would have a 2-car garage. Similar floor plan here. You can see how that outdoor living space sets up. It's within the box. People really seem to latch on to this space and personalizing that for their living style. Now, the other product that will be planned here is what we call a townhome. All of these home sites do have 2-car garages. You can see the manicured lawns there, so all these lawns are maintained consistently by the homeowners association. The perimeter of this building is maintained by the association. When the roof goes bad, it's repaired. If siding comes off, it's repaired. So you don't have an issue with things degrading over time. This is the end unit here, the Waverly. You can see the access from the end. So we're trying to wrap that architecture around the side of the home, so no matter where you're standing on the site, you get good architectural details. And this is a floor plan where these are ranch homes The owner suite is on the first floor. You have the two-car garage that I mentioned, that integral outdoor living space. This is a 4-unit home. And with the lower level, you can see there where it's divided, so that's how the 4 homes split up. Directly below that, in every unit, we end up finishing the space. So we have media room options down here, rec rooms, additional bedrooms. So the square footage of these homes is really 1,700 to 2,850. So while they're attached, a lot of them are similar in size to what you would see in a 2-story standard subdivision as far as size. So pricing is always important. The single-family homes here, there's the range. These are the base prices. This is how it would be if you walked in and talked to the market manager. By the time you added your options and selections, typically we see that from $30,000 to $40,000, $50,000. The end sales price would be in addition to these base prices. So that's the single family and townhome pricing. And to substantiate that, this is the data from Crestborn, the actual sales there. You can see 330. Those are for a similar type home to the detached patio homes I showed. And then Ridgeborn at Lakemont was the final street that sort of pushed out towards Doe Run Lake. And those were the blended price of the interior, the middle units and the end units as you go down that street. So you'll probably hear a lot tonight about property values and how what we're doing will impact that. And as I look around what is essentially the single family areas in Doe Run, Lakemont single family, I'm excluding all the attached homes, that average is 297. So that's transfers of homes, initial home prices that were sold, but that is what the neighborhood is composed of when you compare single family to this. This is the streetscape in a community we've developed in Boone County, Harmony. This is the same size lot, a 52-foot wide lot. These are the same types of homes that would be built. What you'll notice is the way all the home yards are maintained consistently. They're all treated so that everyone has nice grass. The shrubs are maintained. We would do street tree program here, consistent mailboxes. So what you get, despite the narrowness of the lots, is a very nice streetscape. These buyers don't want a lot of yard to take care of. In fact, they're not taking care of it themselves, but they don't desire the large yards that they had maybe when they were raising a family. And then these are some of the samples of amenities that we've built where we would have entrance monuments for the various neighborhoods. Trail signage at the trailheads where people access the circulation through the community, and then how we would set up a park-like feature around that lake with landscaping, mowed areas, trails, and benches. So a lot of the discussion the other night revolved around, well, why can't you just do a standard community? The zoning's there, just do 80-foot lots. So one of the studies we had is what I've shown here. It's a plan with 70-foot wide lots, which could be done under the R1C open space. So this could be brought through the city and approved as is with no public hearings or council votes. So this is something we could do. Like I told you before, I don't believe this is necessarily the market out here. We do have other single-family communities where we have that type of home, and this would not be our desire, but you could do it. So this plan has 174 homes. The minimum square footage is 8,500 square feet. It can be a 70-foot minimum lot. There is an open space requirement, so we did not cross the major stream here in the middle of the site and didn't utilize the unusable portions across that. But for what's shown here, we could do a lot more grading, and you could be more disruptive to the site and make this plan happen. It's certainly feasible. This plan has 7,271 feet of street, so there's about not quite 2,000 more lineal feet of street that becomes a maintenance issue for the city, and you don't really gain any benefit out of the additional street. So we felt like this is exactly what the RCD plan or the ordinance was set up to allow flexibility for. You could do this, yes, but we feel like a better plan for this site and some of the features that are on it is to cluster homes on the more usable parts of the site. I also want to emphasize that there's no direct correlation between the lot width and the price of the home that it goes on. So these are two market homes that the Dries Company has out there today. This is a Castleberry, which I showed you earlier at Crestbourne. That's on a 52-foot lot. You can see up here that is listed at $349,900. The square footage with the basement is $3,190, so it's not a small home by any means. And then this is a more traditional two-story family home with 4 bedrooms, a little over 3,000 square feet. This is in the Sherborne community on a 70-foot lot, and you can see the sales price there. So a lot of that has to do with the underlying land price between the new community and what is an existing community. So there's a ratio there that, I won't get into the math of it, but it's roughly 20% of the land value is as compared to the sales price. So it would be very difficult to come into this community and do much smaller, cheaper homes because of that land value. Customers simply won't pay you 25 or 30% of the home as allocated to land. Another issue that came up the other evening was traffic. Tried to explain a little bit about this buyer profile and their habits compared to single-family home buyers, which you would consider families. So we've spoken to our traffic engineer and got a little more information here. So the code really breaks it out into the single-family detached you see here, which is what's typical in the area, residential townhomes, and our patios. So the main thing you can see the difference of is this AM and PM peak. So you're at about half there, a little less than half there on the trips generated. Just kind of break it down even more simply. So 160 patio and townhomes generates 154 trips during AM, PM peak hours. So that's the time when everyone's trying to get to work and there's congestion on the roads. So the plan I showed you with 174 single-family homes using these metrics would generate 304 trips, and it's right during that time that everyone's trying to get to school and work. So the buyers we see here, in many cases, are retired. Maybe only one of the couples works. They have a totally different habit to their errands and how they enter and exit the community. And we think that is actually a benefit in this case compared to what another single-family community would do. So these were some of the things that were gone through the other evening on compliance with the RCD, which I've explained how we're seeking narrower lots in order to preserve the hillsides, streams, and sensitive areas. We've exceeded the open space requirements by almost double what's required in the RCD, and we're using that space for pedestrian connections, not only for our community, but the community at large. And as far as the comprehensive plan goes, one of the main things here is this variety of housing types. So we can continue building more single-family homes, but we're going to have fewer and fewer options, like I mentioned, for people to stay in the city if that's where they want to downsize and live as they go forward. So what we're asking you to do this evening is evaluate this plan on its merits in compliance with the zoning ordinance. So not the emotion of the testimony you're going to hear tonight. We acknowledge the missteps that occurred in certain sections of Lakemont when we went through the housing downturn. I know many of you were maybe involved on council with hearing some of that. But in the end, Dries continued development of the community and will complete build out in the near future. There were many developments where the developer walked away, did not finish lots or homes, and you have homes out in fields that may never be finished. So to put it in perspective, approximately 10 homes in Crestbourne, while not meeting some resident standards, are still places that families call home, and probably consider Lakemont a very nice place to live. I'd ask you to consider that within the context of the nearly 1,000 homes that have been built within the city by the Dries Company. So at some point, this property will be developed. You know, we've worked with the List family for over a year to get to this point. I know that they're ready to move on, and at some point, if it's not us, someone else is going to come along. They can do the plan I showed you, but you will have to deal with a lot of the issues that I went through this evening regarding traffic and some of those things. So we look forward to partnering with the city on a path forward where we can work with you if there's certain things you'd like to see in the plan or recommendations you would make. We're happy to have that dialogue with you. So I appreciate your time and patience this evening. If you have any further comments or requests, I'll be happy to answer those once the public's spoken.
Okay.
Or do you want to do questions now?
Yeah, I was going to open it up to council and see if there are any questions. Mrs. Kyle?
Yes, I'm particularly interested in the maps that you showed us, the aerial map and the concept plan, but I think it would also be very beneficial to council if we could have a copy of your whole presentation, if
Okay.
that's not asking too much.
Not at all.
I mean, because I want to make sure, this is a heavy decision, make sure I have all the facts right in front of me so I can study it and
Okay.
see, you know, exactly what people are talking about. I can see where the streets are, and I mean, I know about where they are, but it helps to see these maps and plans.
Sure.
And then I have another question too. Like in the regular Lakemont development, what is the average size lot over there? Because I see some lots being advertised or houses being sold that have 10,000 square feet lots, and I'm like, I'm confused because what I read in one of the documents that we got was the minimum size was 12,000 square feet. And I know the Enclave over off Turkey Foot, I'm thinking those were about 1/4 of an acre to maybe 0.34 acres. So that gives me some perspective where I can, you know,
Sure.
judge and make a good decision. So would that be possible that we would get a copy of some of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got this map here. I can kind of go through.
I mean, it could be email, it doesn't have to be hard copy, just something that we can see. Because this is also rapid tonight, and this way I have the comments tonight, and I have the papers in front of me, and I have a pretty long time to digest all this,
Okay.
okay?
Well, if it's okay, while I have this up, I can walk you through Lakemont.
Okay,
The original plan at Lakemont had a section called Winborn, the marketing name Winborn, and that was patio homes. And those are 52 or 55 foot wide lots. I don't recall exactly. Very similar to what we're proposing here. And then we had an estate section here that were 90 and 100 foot lots, I believe. Back here, we had 70 and 80 foot lots. So that 70, 80 foot lot is really kind of what the R1C is. 12,500 square foot, I believe. It's 80 foot standard. You can go with the open space option to 70. And then in Crestbourne in the back, we had 52 foot lots. And in the perimeter here, we're 65 and 70s kind of blended together. Then Enclave is an R1F zone. That was already zoned when we did that. So that's a 63 foot wide lot. And you know, I think the smallest one there's maybe 130 deep. So, okay.
Any other questions for Ben? Yeah, go ahead and speak into the microphone. Kevin, would you mind turning on your...
I got it. You talk about ways to get it out of here. I thought you just showed 2. Is there supposed to be 3 ways that are out?
Not necessarily. One entrance could work here on this site. We were having a traffic impact study done to take this to the next level, but
I know where you showed the 2. I thought there was going to be one on the others, on the back side maybe.
we've got one here.
Right.
Proposing another one there. There is a connection here to this intersection with Buck Hill Drive, I believe. That was Doe Run, I believe. So there are 3 ways in and out of the community. We're not making or requesting a waiver here for this 4th connection to Mesa Drive.
Okay. Thank you.
Corinne?
I have 2 questions. The first one is on the Enclave. I heard that, and just correct me if I'm wrong, that those lots sold really quick.
We've built some similar plans. Some of the ones I showed you tonight are built there. We do have a couple of 2-story plans, but I think we've sold around 15 since that project opened up roughly this time last year. We're 13, 14 months into the project.
Okay, how many lots are over there?
That's 28 total.
And are they all single-family homes?
Yes, there's none attached, if that's what you mean by
Yes.
single family.
Okay. My other question is, Narrows is the same road it's been, and in the past 25 years, Brightleaf has been added, which is even growing still. Adair Estates, Deer Chase, Doe Run, Lakemont, Sherborne, and Mesa. The only 2 ways off of Narrows is Brightleaf Boulevard, Narrows to Brightleaf Boulevard, or Richardson. Richardson Road is collapsing, and I'm just asking if there's anything Dries is going to do to fix those roads with all this added.
Well, like I mentioned, we are getting a traffic impact study done. So depending on the results of that, we would work with council on that road and what the recommendations are and what we would do. You know, typically what would be involved with a subdivision is a decel lane. You know, turning in, having an approach, place for people to safely turn. But with this being a 4-way intersection, I don't see that happen. There's no need to decel if you're at a full stop. So I don't see those type of improvements there. We're potentially looking at this as a 4-way intersection. So I don't know until I would see that what recommendations might be made. So we're the last one to the table. Everyone will be looking to us. So.
All right, any other questions? Mr. Cahill?
There was 4 recommendations that planning made. Could you kind of walk through those? I know one was Mesa, the sidewalks, and 2 others.
Bear with me here. I'm trying to get staff notes. Staff recommendations, there were 6. Number 1 was all accessory structures meet the requirements of the underlying R1C zone. That would be governed by the homeowner restrictions and guidelines. Provide internal trails with all open spaces. So I went through that in the slide presentation. Number 3 was a vehicular and pedestrian connection be made to Mesa Drive, unless a waiver is granted by KCPC. So we would still request the waiver on the road connection. I do think there's a potential for a pedestrian connection there if we separated the lots and create an open space so that those residents could get into the greater pedestrian network. Number 4, developer work with appropriate agencies to provide a safer walkway and crosswalk across Narrows Road. We would certainly agree to that. I think that could probably be done with striping and signage. Number 5, crosswalks be provided at the new intersections to the existing sidewalks across Narrows Road. That would be similar response. Provide sidewalks along Narrows Road and Nelson Road along the entire frontage of the development unless a waiver is granted. The only area that we're kind of requesting a waiver is to just bring this portion through the neighborhood on the standard sidewalk within the street section, so that we don't have residents walking kind of on the high point at that curve. So it's more of a safety issue. Everywhere else along Narrows, we've brought the walk well off of Narrows Road for safety.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we've had a few people sign up to speak. Do we have a list? Okay, we've got quite a few people signed up to speak. Again, I'll remind you that this is not a hearing. There's not going to be a decision tonight. This is your opportunity to express comments and concerns, ask questions. We'll ask everybody to come up and speak into the mic. And I'd like to try to have, if it'd be possible, to limit it within 3 minutes as well. So the first person we have on the list is Julius Groshen. Yeah, oh, thank you.
Honorable Mayor and council persons, I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. We left off with traffic. From observation of living there 11 years, Narrows Road seems to be a cut through from Richardson to get to Turkey Foot Road. People are concerned about the backup at Brightleaf and Turkey Foot. A lot of that has to do, especially at this time of year, with the school buses that are not allowed to turn right on a red light. So that creates a backup. This is a proposal, is an excellent use of the land to build homes for empty nesters. Some of the benefits to nearby neighbors would be the access to the walking trails and the views of the approximately 40% open area. Also, in a large lake that would be very nice to have. Hopefully we can fish in it like we do other lakes, as long as it's catch and release. Previously, I've owned a Dries home and was satisfied with the Dries company. I visited the Harmony development that was before mentioned and was impressed with the street views of the community. And I think a similar development on the List property would be a plus to the area. I would consider myself to purchase one of these lifestyle homes if built in this narrow List property. I like the neighborhood, I want to stay. I am in favor of the zone change to allow this lifestyle community to be built. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, next we've got Pat Dressman.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. I know several of you here. Hold on to your seats. I'm one in favor of this development, so maybe you haven't heard too many people saying they're in favor of it. I think it's a great development. I have worked in the field of aging. I am retired now, but in 1986 I left teaching and I went into the business world, and I became very interested in the aging population. 1986, and I don't know if any of you are aware, the pyramid was the population, and the seniors were at the top, very, very few seniors, and everybody else was at the bottom. In 1999, I became Director of Human Services for Campbell County Fiscal Court. I oversaw a senior center and a lot of the aging programs. One of the things that started shifting was this whole population pyramid. It started becoming more like this. Today, it's like this, and in another 20 years, the whole pyramid will be reversed with more seniors at the top. One of the most interesting things that I found during that time, and I even worked in Frankfurt for the Institute of Aging for many, many years as a volunteer, and we talked about what are the seniors going to need. This is the type of lifestyle that they want. The Campbell County Senior Center changed their entire, not the bingo senior center, but they added a wellness center because the seniors needed something different than what it was years ago. I, for one, am retired, and I live back in Baywood in Lakemont, and I love that condo. I love what we live in. I think this is a great model, and I think you need to think about it, because all of you, if you're not there yet, some might be there as a senior citizen, will probably want that type of style, a one-floor type plan. The 2-car garages, I hope you keep all of that, the Dries Company, because that is needed. We only have a 1-car, wish I had a 2-car, but unfortunately my car stays out on the street or in the parking. So consider all of that when you make your decision. It's not going to change. The demographics aren't going to change. You're going to have more and more and more senior citizens that are looking for that type of a development. And why not have them in the city of Erlanger instead of somewhere else? Traffic problems, you can always go to the Department of Transportation and get that light changed, like I think you said before. Get the timing changed on that light coming out of Brightleaf. Maybe do some work on Narrows and straighten that out. That's not going to be up to Dries to do that, I don't think. But you as the city maybe should look into some of those things. That's what's needed. So I think go for it. I think it's a great plan. And people that have complained, property values will not go down. I'll tell you that right now. They'll continue to go up, up, up. And I know when Spring Valley was first built, I believe those were built for about $30,000, believe it or not. And look what they're up to now, 130, 140. Some are still in around 100, but property values will continue to go up, believe me. So thank you, and with all these new revenues, maybe you can find something to do with a little traffic control. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. All right, next up we've got Mary Lynn, Flederman. Thank you.
Honorable Mayor and council members, I'm here to state that I am in favor of this development. I was born in Northern Kentucky, and I pretty much grew up in Crestview Hills, Kentucky. I now live in Union, Kentucky, and I've been here for about 25 years. This past summer, I happened to look at the Dries development off of Turkey Foot because my interest in this development is that I wanted to move closer to Cincinnati because I'm out here in Union pretty far, and most of my activities and my friends and everything that I do, they're all across the river, but I want to keep myself here in Northern Kentucky. So this looked like an opportunity to downsize from my large home, move closer to the Cincinnati area and to the activities I have, but still stay in Northern Kentucky. So to me, this was pretty much a triple win for me, and I didn't realize there was going to be this much discussion about it. I just was looking forward to it and kind of had my heart set on moving in a couple of years. So my bottom line is I'm in favor of it, and I'll be ready to move in a few years.
All right, thank you. Next, we've got Dave Costello.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. I ask you to take the emotional testimony by Dries with a grain of salt. We've heard a lot of things during the Planning Commission meeting that were very disturbing. And I would remind you that they have an unfavorable finding. I know you have just received those, and I certainly hope that each and every one of you takes the time to review that, because there were some incredibly disturbing things that we heard about the trustworthiness of the Dries Company. So along with the of course, with the traffic and then some of the things. This was a different presentation, too, that we've seen tonight that we've seen at the Planning Commission. That's a little bit concerning as well. So there were certainly some big changes, I thought. That's all I have.
Thank you. Carolyn Cassidy.
Thank you. My name's Carolyn Cassidy. I live on Narrows Road. I live 2 doors from the fire department. The houses look nice, I will agree. There's a couple things I have questions about and concerns. Of course, the traffic. I have a very difficult time right now backing out of my driveway. I have a blind spot where the farmhouse currently sits. I would say at least 30% of the people exceed the speed on Narrows. Also, there is no drainage on Narrows. It all comes into my yard and into my driveway. And the sidewalks are in disrepair on my side of the road. On the opposite side where this proposal is, there are no sidewalks. When I look at the townhomes and I look at the lots that are near Country Road, I don't see how the road can be dealt with without going into that subdivision. You could come onto our side, but we already have, our front yard already has a sidewalk. So how are you going to deal with the future of Narrows Road if you allow this building to come, mainly the townhomes, up onto Narrows so close? I would like a sidewalk for everyone, not just for the residents. I know that Erlanger has been repairing sidewalks all over the city, so when you come to do this plan, how are you going to deal with it if you have houses and yards already there? And the traffic, definitely, it is going to be developed, there's no doubt about it. I like the green space, but it's not that I'll be able to see it because my view will be blocked. So I don't like how dense this is. I think it's a little bit too much. I think the other plan that they showed is not feasible because of the land and the price to rework the land. So I am against the zone change. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We've got William Whitley.
Honorable Mayor, Councilman. My big issue with this is I know that development is coming. Don't have any objection to that. My big issue is the traffic. When Station 3 opened, I was one of the first firefighter volunteers that were going to run out of Station 3. Since then, I have seen the traffic flow increase a lot. So I know from past experience that with the fire department and the police department, if we don't do something with the traffic flow on Narrows Road, there is going to be an issue. Richardson Road is horrible. That's a nightmare down there going off of Narrows Road. And you can look at your own runs and how many injuries there is and even deaths at that intersection. So all I'm saying is, I don't mind progress, but you really need to look at Narrows Road for that traffic flow. There's going to be a nightmare that won't quit. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Jividan.
One of them pointers. I'm just a poor boy. My name's Ron Jividan. I live at 4010 Narrows Road, just right across the road from the list. Known the list since '79. Do not begrudge them on trying to develop their land. I begrudge the way the land is being developed. You've been hearing over and over about the traffic. The traffic is phenomenal. When I first moved in '79, I had a camper and I could back it into my driveway. Didn't have to worry about anything. I got a 14-foot utility trailer and I back into my driveway and I got half a dozen more people on each side of me wanting through, and so I'm backing up They just keep crowding me and crowding me. If I have to pull up, I can't. We almost get to a stalemate now. Who's going to get here? The lots, I'm sorry, Mr. Dries, way too small. Way too small. How many feet do you have between houses when the houses are built on that lot? How many clearance do you have between them?
I think he showed about 10 feet.
10 to 12 feet. My house built in '79, I had 15 to the property line. Mr. Bill had 15 feet to his property line. Now what have we got? Now we got 30 feet. You're looking at a safety issue there. If one of them homes happen to catch on fire, it's going to be hard to stop it from catching the next one because they're too close. Has anybody been around a burning home fully inflamed at 10 feet? You don't want to be there. So that house next door is subject to catch on fire, the next one, and the next one. At least we got enough buffer zone to hopefully eliminate that. Doesn't mean it will, but it could. On this side of the property, where they got that line drawn through there, and you see those nice trees and bushes that you got there, they're not there. They're not there at all. If they were, they'd be on the people who's on that property line. They'd be all over their property. Those trees aren't there. Camouflage. And like I say, the traffic. Who's going to be responsible for the accidents? Because they're going to be. You put 300 to 400 more cars onto that road that's probably been outdated since 1930. It's not going to work. That issue should be addressed now. And who will be responsible for it? I don't think the homeowner should be responsible for it. And I know how the city works a lot of times, not only Erlanger, but other cities as well. I got a deed to my property and I own to the sidewalk. City comes along and says, hey, we're going to develop this highway. We're going to develop this road. Who's going to pay for it? Now I own to the middle of the road and I got to pay for it. That's a double standard.
Mr.
That's not
Shividen,
right.
can you wrap it up in about 15 seconds?
Okay. My main thing is the traffic. Not against them being able to develop anything, but it's not good the way it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we've got Debbie Stevie. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I currently live in Trails to Run on the corner where the intersection would come out of this new development. And honestly, I'm all in favor of the development. I'm kind of tired of looking at the overgrown weeds and just array over there because we look directly on it from the four-way that we're at. That being said, because we do live at the corner, we do get a lot of traffic through there coming from Lakemont. And I guess my big concern with that crossing through, we're going to have more traffic. I know there's a lot of families with little kids that are moving in on that main street, and the traffic and the speed, I say speed limit, but that doesn't really exist in our neighborhood. Stop signs don't exist. So I do worry about the number of homes, the more traffic, and I know it's kind of beating a dead horse right now, but and the way they're talking about the one entrance to the subdivision on this corner area, which would be a four-way. I think my big concern with that is even where that bends, even just yesterday, and I think it's right in that area, the way that road kind of bends, if you're coming out of that area, as cars are coming in, they cut that bend really short, and they're always on the other side of the double yellow. It happened to me yesterday. It was icing, and I was like, whoa. But anyway, I just worry if we add more traffic to that, how bad that's going to get. We have a lot of young teenagers driving. They have no regard for anything that's going on in the neighborhood anyway. So if they're on Narrows, I can guarantee you they're going to be flying through that stop sign and while they're checking their cell phone and adjusting their radio. So I had kids, I know, I lived through it, but I just worry about that corner where they're proposing the entrance, because that is already kind of hairy right there in that bend. So I hate to be a dead horse about traffic, but that's some of my issues that I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Steve. Next, we've got Pam Brophy.
Mayor, council members, my name is Pam Brophy. I live on 1250 Mesa Drive, which is in the cul-de-sac of Mesa Drive, where there could proposedly make our street come into the new subdivision that they're proposing. I have a real issue with this, because if they by chance do a waiver and decide to do that, I don't think that they will use the proposed areas to come into the subdivision. I think they'll take a shortcut through Mesa and come through that way. And that's a pretty dangerous bend that comes right through there. And as I said, I live in the middle house right on the middle of that part. And that's my main concern. Also, the lot sizes, I'm not happy about that at all. I think they should be the same kind of houses that we have in the area. Thank you.
So you are in favor of it not connecting to Mesa? Okay. But then the lot sizes, okay. Okay, Diana Nicely? Okay. Jeff Nordlow?
My name's Jeff Nordlow, and I live at 908 Doe Ridge. Doe Ridge is considered a stub road that's going to run into this development. I've lived in Erlanger all my life. That's starting to add up to be a lot of years. We live in a close-knit community. I bought Frank a beer at the Lions Festival a couple of years ago. The mayor serves me beer at St. Barbara's Rocktoberfest.
Drink a lot of beer.
It's a great community. There's no doubt about that. I have friends on the fire department, and I've gone to Gatlinburg with members of the police department. The parish of St. Henry's asked me to become a Roman Catholic priest. That's who Jeff Nordlow is. And sometimes I hold myself accountable to a higher level, and I hold others accountable too, and that includes city governments. Back in the 70s, we have a great police department. Back in the 70s, the police had the foresight to know my house was going to get broken into. Actually, my dad's house. I lived there. I was 13. The obituary burglars. They would check the obituary burglars, and then they would rob your house while you were at a visitation. Now, can you imagine the look on those burglars' face when they came face to face with a police officer like that, 10 feet away? You might have shot the phone off the wall, but that's okay. You caught the burglars. But then in the 90s, there's another shady character in my backyard. Somebody else that was stealing from me. Somebody else that could not be trusted. So I came to the city council and said, there's a shady character in my backyard. There's something not right. Somebody's stealing from me. And you did nothing. You let it happen. Several times I said, there's a shady character in my backyard. Council member Ken Yaden said, and I've said this before and I'll say this again, what this man's doing is illegal. Well, that man was Bill Erpenbeck. And the development was Erlanger Lakes. And it was a violated development plan. So I moved out of a home I lived in for 40 years. Erlanger Lakes cost you, that's a given, I won't go into the details. It cost the Planning Commission, it cost me, the developers serving 2 30-year consecutive terms. So I moved to Lakemont, New Start. I was happy. It was a bad area, a lot of crime. So I moved to Lakemont. And then next thing you know, well, I did my homework on the plan, believe me. I know the zoning. I had the development plan agreement. And then all of a sudden in my front yard, there's something shady going on. What's this? Next thing you know, another development plan is being broken. A legal binding document. And that was Drees. They were building cheap homes with siding on patio home lots. So at a time when I'm losing tens of thousands of dollars on my property value, which I work hard for, not getting a raise, taking cutbacks, I'm digging in my pockets, again, to get money out to hire an attorney.
Mr. Nordlow, can you wrap it up in about 15 seconds?
Okay. Well, let's go a little bit further. First of all, as far as the purpose for the RCD zone is to protect the hillsides. You even mentioned steep hillsides. This area is not a steep hillside. I even have a topographical map that shows it. Anywhere you see this green is a steep hillside. I was a forestry major at the University of Kentucky. I used to draw maps. This site, this piece of pizza looking thing here, you see is all white. It's not a steep hillside considering what a PRDA, physically restrictive development area is. There's actually 4 contour lines, and the gradients isn't that much. Where I live here, there's 15 gradients lines, yet they could develop an R1C home on 12,500 square feet.
Mr. Nordlow, could we, I mean, this, again, this is not the hearing. We're not
I
going to
will
make a decision
go into more
tonight.
detail,
If
but I
maybe
am against
you could
this.
just tell us what, okay, so I've got RCD might be the wrong zone.
Exactly.
According to the hillsides. Is there anything else we can bullet point?
Yeah, bullet point is the 6,200 square feet is the equivalent to an R1M zone. An R1M zone is a mobile home lot. Mobile home lots are at 6,000 square feet. And also zoning, I've read the zoning ordinance, and there's really nothing in there saying you must be 50 years plus to move in there. So based on that, there's a lot of things. I have a lot more to go over with that. I'll do that at the public hearing.
Okay.
But I do appreciate everything that you guys do.
Thank you for taking the time. Okay, next we've got Mr. Ben Taylor. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Any other Ben Taylors in the audience? Sorry. Okay, Tracy Tapelman.
Thank you for hearing us all today. My name is Tracy Tebelman. I live at the Trails of Doe Run, right at the beginning on Buck Hill Drive, first house on the left once you pass the island. So a couple things that I thought was interesting out of the presentation today is the target is, they talked about the number of people in Erlanger that are over 50. I'm one of those. My husband is as well. We have a 13-year-old daughter. So we're not planning on moving into any of these early retirement type of facilities, considering that they're actually 2 stories, right? If you heard, you've got a ranch, and then you also have a basement that you move into. So some of the comments that Dries had made is to get rid of some of the stairs and to make sure that it's more feasible for people that are retiree that don't have to take stairs. The presentation that they showed you of the houses, that is stairs that they have showing there, so that kind of falls in the face of that, as well as the townhomes are all 2 stories as well. So, and secondly, I have concerns about the roads, as everyone does. But my other concern is about what we're trying to do with our community, right? We have the schools that we're already starting to see, Dixie, we're starting to see Turkey Foot having to be rezoned because we're starting to lose students. We don't have families moving in, or as many families moving in as we need to. And the families are the ones that bring in the revenue. You have the schools that happen. We're talking about redistricting part of Dixie to bring in some of the Simon Kenton folks. We should be looking at using the land as what it's needed for, and that's houses. Don't redistrict it. Leave it as the RC1, not RCD. Thank you.
Kimberly Needham.
Mayor and council members, thank you for hearing us tonight. I actually am the one that lives right next to the site. So with that being in mind, you've heard about the traffic, you've heard about the drainage, you've heard about pretty much everything of that. I want to talk about my home. So we moved there. I've lived here since I was 6 years old in northern Kentucky. I actually moved in to one of the duplexes down in Carriage Hill. And so I've lived on Narrows Road for almost 16 years now. And in the time that I moved in there was very little traffic. I mean, my kids could play out in the backyard. We never worried about them. Now, I don't even want my grandbabies in the front yard without me watching them. And I live on the curve, so I am the curve. I look at their plan and I see how far they're setting their sidewalks back, and I think it's because they know they're going to widen that road. You're going to have to. I've been around a lot of communities, and there's just no way we can handle any more traffic on there. So what's going to happen is when you widen that road, there's a fire hydrant across from me, and there's a sidewalk across from me, so you're going to widen it onto my property. You're going to take my front yard. You're going to put me on a 4-lane, if not at least a 3-lane road. And you're going to take my big oak. And that's why I bought my property, was to have that land and be set back from the road so that my kids could play safely. The gentleman did make a comment about the tree line, and I would like to clarify that. There are trees there. I'm not going to tell you they're not, but they're old. Half of them are dead. And in the time that we've lived there, we are taking some of them down, and most of it is scrub brush, as my husband calls it, honeysuckle. So no, if there's, as he says, a 65-year-old lady sitting out in her bathing suit suntanning, they're not going to block us. So the other thing is I mean, just being honest. Nobody wants me to see at my age sitting out in a bikini either. Where they start the trees is actually the beginning of what we call some tree area. And it moves back. We also have a very large opening, and then we have a little more trees. But the tree line is coming down. I mean, it's dying. It's falling down if we don't take it down. So there will be no barrier there. The other thing is they're talking about the difference in the RCD with the density and the regular RC. The difference to me is 13 houses on my side are going down my side, or 8. And when you look at the 2, I counted them when he put the new one up because he didn't show us that last time. There's 8 houses. Right now there's going to be 13. So as much as I believe that the list have all rights to sell and progress to be made, do you want 13 brand new neighbors in your side yard? I don't. And we bought this. I moved here when I was 6, and I've seen this property since I was 12 because I had friends in this area, and I've been waiting on this property for a long time. I bought my very first house when I was 43 years old because I couldn't find the property I wanted. I bought this because I love the nature. And the big reason for the green area, which I won't be able to see with 13 houses, and I won't be able to enjoy with 13 houses, is because of the streams. They can't develop it, and that's why they're doing it. And it's not out of the goodness of their hearts, it's cheaper for them. So all I ask is, with all the traffic, and I really wish they would have come with a traffic study, they probably knew that you needed, I mean, they've done this enough. You'd think they would have been prepared. We asked for it at the last council meeting, or at the zoning commission. I would have really put that at a forefront. But since they didn't, take in the traffic, take in the drainage, take in the extra people. But all I ask is, would you put yourself in my house, and would you approve it if it was your house sitting there? Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next we've got David Staverman. Okay. And then Kenneth Needham. Okay, thank you. And then we've got Carrie and Brian Baumgartner.
Hello. So everyone, my primary concern, I'm actually in the Trails of Doe Run on Buck Hill, and everyone said, you know, the traffic is the primary concern, and I would certainly agree. Being primarily raised in the Washington, D.C. area, this is not traffic, okay? You don't know traffic, let me tell you right now, okay? But let's face it, I cannot believe that 69 acres have been sitting there this long, okay? It's going to be developed. I totally understand people's concerns about, you know, property values, but from what I've seen, you know, I think that the Dries developments are nice, and I think they're well maintained. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but I would certainly say that, you know, my primary concern is really just the traffic. But I'm just tired of seeing the land just sit there barren, because someone is going to eventually develop it. No doubt about it. But thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Nick Niswander.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to talk tonight. And let me show you where I live. All that traffic. Moved out there, and I've heard a couple of different. How much time I get?
3 minutes.
2
minutes and
Jack,
40 seconds.
I can use that real quick. But I moved out there in '79 when Spring Valley was a starter home community. And somebody's flipped the hourglass upside down. Suddenly I'm looking at retirement home communities across the road. So I guess what I don't understand is, and I've lived out there a long time, I know there's a drainage problem out through where they've got it towards Doe Run Lake and stuff, because he never farmed it, and I don't know what that is exactly, but I will tell you this. My neighbor has had problems, had his garage wiped out because somebody couldn't make the corner on that road. The road, we may not be Washington, D.C., but when I moved out there, it was beautiful farmland. I'm an Ohio farm boy, and I liked it, and it has changed tremendously. Another thing I haven't heard about is in the time period went out there, Spring Valley has changed from a starter community, has rolled over property several times. When I moved there, the houses were going for $40,000 to $60,000. Now the houses are about probably 115, 120, and I got a buy level. So there has been some appreciation in the right direction for everybody, for tax value and everything. But there is going to be an enormous traffic and other headaches out there. I've seen the drug problem cause problems in our neighborhood. When they put the condos in initially, up there on Carriage Hill, they had problems with drugs and arson. So if we get an older community in there, they're not going to stay as long, 20, 25 years, a generation, we're 40. So there's going to be a rollover and all that goes with it down the road. So it needs to be developed. I'm not against development, but I want it developed right so that it helps the community and grows the community in the right direction. And when I didn't hear from him tonight, and the amazing thing, and I'll try to wrap this up real quick about Dries, is this development out in that area got hodgepodged over the years, never knew about the zoning issues that developed, was never put on notice about any of those, just I guess as things went by, it just happened, and according to what I was enjoying in my lifetime there. But I didn't hear why there's such a emphasis on this plan as opposed to one they could put in without bringing it to the council. And it usually breaks down to cost, money, grading issues, and that kind of stuff. I'm an attorney. I've done construction litigation. I've seen ground change after they've got in there. So I would ask the council to hold Dries accountable and make sure that if whatever they decide to go to, that you keep it that way and they don't slip in and start putting in high housing developments that increases the density. Density is a problem out there, and what it doesn't show is just around the corner, Ellesmere has allowed apartment buildings that's created to the traffic, and the whole area has totally changed from an agrarian atmosphere to one of really an urban. And that's why I'm against it. They should be kept that way, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next we've got Linda Moss.
Good evening, and thanks for hearing our concerns. I also live out across from this current farm in Deer Chase Drive, and I'm also opposed to the zoning change. If you're familiar with this area, it's so far out. You drive another 4 or 5 miles compared to normal homes and places in Erlanger, which puts a lot of miles on my car, but I'm willing to do it because it was a nice rural area. Even though you still are in Erlanger, it has nice sized lots. There are still some other farms around. So I also would just like to see the zoning stay the same as what it is. To have lot sizes the same as a mobile home just does not go with the area and what the current residents are familiar with. There's also a fishing lake on Deer Chase Drive right now, so that's already there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Heather Isler.
I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I feel like I need to. First of all, just look at this farm. It is absolutely gorgeous, and it's in Erlanger, and this is what we're choosing to do with it. And I think that is unfortunate, honestly, because there's so many other options we could have with this farm. I am against the lot sizes for sure. We built a Jury's house 13 years ago. I love my Jury's house. It's gorgeous. It's well built. But I don't like the idea of this being here with these very small lots. I feel like it's very deceiving too, because I work with the geriatric population, and to say these are for retirees, is there an age limit? Because if there's not an age limit or we don't have an age restriction, that is not true. You can't keep families from buying these homes. So these are just smaller homes for families. They're not retiree homes. A lot of the retirees that I know that have actually downsized have moved into larger homes. So let's think about that for a minute. Because they build the house, they have the money they need now, and they build the house they want. I think they could easily sell much larger houses on these lots, maintain the property that is there, and really help the city of Erlanger more. So I'm against that. And also, someone is gonna slide down that hill from Nelson to Narrows into everybody else. That needs to be completely redone. If it's wet, if it's rainy, anything. I have a son who's 15. I mean, you have to stop at the top of that hill before you even approach it, or you will slide down the hill. So there's just so many problems with traffic already. It is definitely gonna cause other issues. So I'm sure I missed something else I wanted to say, but that's it.
Thank you. We've got Charles Myers. Is there a Charles Myers? Okay. And Angie Ziegelmeyer.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I live in Buck Hill, so near where the Doe Ridge are in that area. I too know that, sadly, I miss the cows that were there that I passed all the time. Know that it will be developed, and I also, with the Nelson Hill, however this is developed, where that four-way intersection that they plan to put, I would love to see that somehow straightened, because right now, when it's icy, I do go over the middle line because I don't want to end up in the ditch. Make sure no one's coming at me, but that certainly needs to be addressed. I also, while I appreciate that they've moved their walking area back because of the dangers, I know there are many, many people who walk and run in Erlanger and go, need to use Narrows to get from the Lakemont area up to Turkey Foot to do long runs or walks or what have you. So I would like to see or appreciate, and I know that I think council has looked at somehow connecting sidewalks in that area. So if it was on that side, I would like to see that be done for those of us who do utilize that area currently. And Dries, I guess, isn't aware of how many people do navigate that area every day. One of my questions, and I've lived in Erlanger, and I don't mean to, and I hope not to offend anyone who lives in Erlanger. is downsizing to a $350,000 home truly a downsize? I guess, what are the demographics that we're looking at here? Are we looking to attract people from other areas, or are we looking to keep our growing or elderly population of Erlanger and moving them into these nice homes? As it was said, Spring Valley, for example, I know aside from probably Brightleaf, Lakemont, I grew up on Forest Avenue. Those homes are not $300,000 homes. If someone was downsizing from Spring Valley, are they going to go from a $120,000 home to a $300,000 home? Is someone going to pay that in their 50s or 60s and then have that up mortgage? So that's just one of the questions that comes to me. I would love to see this, or I think I'm against this plan, but can we keep that green space, have the RC1, I think is what it currently is, maybe less homes, but a nicer use of that area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mrs. Zickelmeyer was the last one to be signed up. Was there anybody else that did not get an opportunity to sign up? Please come up and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Pat Kaiser. I live in the property that's right next door to the lady who's right next door to the development. So I will also be gaining 13 extra neighbors if it's built. The only thing that I would like to say is that based on my reading of the law, and I'm not an attorney, but it seems to me that the lot sizes are supposed to be 12,500 square feet for the zoning that's there presently. As you can see, just looking at it, you can see that the lot sizes are very, very small. This right here is the property we live on. It's about 4 acres. If they build this place, it'll probably cut our property value in half, because we, instead of having a farm in our backyard that's beautiful, we'll have a bunch of houses. So therefore, I would ask that if the zoning change is granted, that you put a requirement that they build a tree line to actually block it off so that we don't have to look at it. We can look at trees instead of a bunch of people's backyards. Secondly, well, that's it. You know, I'm against the zone change because zone requirements are there for a reason. I think they should be maintained. If the zone is maintained, it's not an 8,500 square foot lot based on my reading of the law. It's a 12,500 square foot lot. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I saw another hand.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for listening to us here today. I'll be really brief.
Would you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Matt Bashinsky. I live on Spring Valley. Okay. Over the last several years, traffic has gotten worse, and I know we're beating a dead horse on this, so that's why I'm going to be brief. This is the second time this development has been discussed, and I don't think we have any traffic answers yet. If the next time we meet and discuss this is when it's going to be voted on, I would ask you, please do not make a decision on this without a concrete plan for how to deal with Narrows, okay, and the traffic, without knowing what to do and how it's going to be paid for, okay, and where the money's going to come from. All right, you know, there's only a few ways out of here, okay, and adding all these homes is just going to add to what is already very congested in the mornings and the afternoons. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. Let me introduce myself. My name is Sandy Liz Grimmy. I am the owner of the property, and I've listened to everybody, all my neighbors, all the people that moved out there for the view. I appreciate that. However, the view wasn't yours. It was mine. It was my dad's farm that started this whole thing. We worked that farm for 60 years. Dad's had it. We've worked it. I was a kid. I did manual labor on that farm. I grew tobacco. I put in the hay. And now you're saying that you're going to miss the farm, and that view is, you can't give up the view. Well, I know Dries is in on this, and he's working with us, but between us, you're hurting me as long as you're hurting Dries. Dries is putting out a good plan. I think it's something I would even move into. I live on Trails of Doe Run. I would even move over here. I think it's a great idea. And for people to say, well, it's going to cut my property value, how can, if you live in a $300,000 house and they put up a $300,000 house, that's going to cut your value? I think it's apples to apples. I'm sorry. And if you are missing the trees, well, go to the nursery and put some in. That's your responsibility. It's not always up to the developer. Take some responsibility for making your house the way you want it to be. Did I say enough? I'm sorry, but it's just really hard to sit and listen to this when the family has put all their love and time in this. And all we are asking is that whoever develops it, I mean, I love this plan, but if it doesn't go through, somebody else is going to develop it, and you're going to have the same problems. You're going to lose your views. You're going to have more traffic. Let's work together and try and get this resolved so everybody's happy. That's what we want to do. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I did see another hand. Was there someone else that wanted to speak? Please. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
I'm Dale Brown, and I live over in Sherborne on Shire Peak at the very end of it. So I kind of overlook the lake and all the other nice things that we have over there, and I'm hoping that we're going to keep some of that in this plan. Now, I've been listening to people here, and I do agree with the Narrows Road situation is going to be a problem that you're going to have to deal with. I take that shortcut all the time because I don't like going through the light at Turkey Foot and the traffic. What I don't like is the density and the smaller lot size. Now, you're going to sell a house over there around $300,000 on a lot that will not give you much privacy. You're going to be right next to your neighbor. We have a little bit bigger homes and that over in Sherborne, and we do have a lot more space between them. It seems like it. We're not that crowded. I just hope that you can consider keeping it to the zoning that you have now. When you talk about traffic, my other home is in Lima, Peru. Now, if you want to talk about gridlock, come see me, okay? We're heading that way in this area too. I mean, 17 and all these other streets are now getting a lot more traffic because we've got a lot more people living out here. And I don't believe the idea that a person that has a 100, well, I've been watching the comps on these houses selling in this area. It's really $100,000 or $200,000 homes that are the ones that are selling. Not so much the $300,000 and $400,000 home. And I've got one of those, and I'm losing money on it. So let's keep it the way it. I know that the lady with the farm here, yes, we had a very nice farm, and I like going by and waving at the cows. They never wave back, but they did move. My wife is from Peru, so she sees that, and she liked the cows because she doesn't have them there. So let's just keep it RC1 and try to get a little bit bigger property lot sizes. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, last call. Any other people interested in speaking? All right. If you wouldn't mind, come up to the microphone. Introduce yourself.
I am not a public speaker, but
Neither am I.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to comment from everything that has been said, and I agree with the people. I live myself in Lakemont. I'm one of these retirees, and we did downsize to a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath condo. Because simply, even though we're retired, we want our children to be able to come and visit and be able to stay with us. So anyway, the consensus really is simply that we're fine with the new development, but we wanted to stay with the current zoning because this is what fits. You guys will have to deal with the traffic because it is horrible. And so this is my conclusion for tonight.
Would you mind telling us your name? Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time out of your evening to be a part of this. Ben, was there anything else that you wanted to address or conclude with? Oh, okay. Corinne, go ahead. Mrs. Pitts?
Ben, I think everybody here agrees that it's going to be built, and it seems like the biggest problem everybody's having is the lot size and the traffic. So, and I agree with that. Is there a way to get the traffic study done before our next meeting?
What is the time of our study?
So he's saying 45 days. That probably does not put us in time for the next meeting. But the scope of it really, it does go out to Turkey Foot Road. It will go down to Richardson. So we're not looking at just our 2 entrance points. So you have a better sense of what's going on there.
Would it make sense for us to push back the hearing until that's done?
Let us see if we can speed our study up first.
Okay.
I believe
okay,
technically.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so our approval at the, if we have this hearing, our approval would be a phase 1 approval. There is then a phase 2 approval that would happen after the traffic study. If the traffic study comes back unfavorable, this council would have the opportunity at that point to either have special requests or to disapprove the development.
Yes. That's
okay,
what I was
so
going
we
to say
would,
with the process, it would come into the stage 2.
Right. Okay. And then was that it? Was there another question in there?
So I'm just trying to understand this right. So when we have our meeting in February, and if they don't have the traffic study, and if for some reason council changes the zoning, and then the traffic study comes back poorly, then is council stuck with that change?
Stage 2 goes back. At the public hearing, we will be voting on the zone change, and with it the stage 1. The stage 2 goes back to KCPC, and they would have, and Andy is actually here if he wants to jump in, but they would have a whole set of things that they would be looking at.
But then it's still, if the zone change is voted on, then it's stuck, it stays.
No, we can make them comply with the requirements of KCPC and requirements of the zone as it relates to the phase 2.
So if it didn't comply, then it would revert back to the R1.
No, it's the one. It's approved, yeah. But that's a little different than I mean, there's 2 stages, but once we approve that zone change, it sticks with that zone change. But we still can hold the developer accountable to the recommendations of the phase 2 that KCPC would bring into the table.
Would we then be bound by KCPC's recommendations, or could we impose additional requirements ourselves?
We certainly could impose additional requirements. Correct. Agree.
So we would have to do that as part of the phase 1.
That's right, the zone change. This is a little bit of a unique overlay zone situation. That's why the process is slightly different. And I have no idea why when the ordinance was passed, the time was reduced to 45 days from the statutory 90 days. No clue.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Taylor? Okay. Not seeing any. Okay, thank you. All right, with that, then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. We've got some other city business to review this evening. You're certainly welcome to stay. We'll go ahead and take a quick 3-minute recess. Hey, thanks for coming out. Tom Cahill has been wanting to be the designee for a while. Tom Cahill. He attends most of the board meetings. Good guy.
The podium.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Hang on, Beth.
This is our whole agenda.
All right, let's pull it back together here. I've got a Murder, She Wrote marathon to watch tonight. All right. The next item on the agenda is referring to the vacant home on Holbert Avenue. Yeah, thanks. Good job. Yeah, that's right. I forgot I have a gavel over here. All right. So we've got an item on the agenda regarding the vacant home on Holbert Avenue. Mr. Kramer has done an extensive study on that property. We're going to go ahead and hold off on discussing that until the next regular council meeting. So we're going to table that item. Next is the other property, Hallam and Elizabeth. Who is this Dave Hahn? Okay, yeah, please.
All right. Sherry's going to pull the plan up that I think Jim gave you all last at the meeting concerning the property about closing this.
Oh yeah.
If you notice, I don't know how to get up there without pointing and hear me on the mic, but up. This is the gentleman that's requesting to change the property. Jim's group did the research on it, found that this was actually a lot. Legal lot, not right away. So the city wanted to still use the other water that property. Make this lot the same as all the properties involved. We would have to declare this property surplus and go through that process of selling, donating. We originally thought it was right away, because that's what we showed on all the GIS information. And, as I said, Jim Drew found it was actually a few lots, which was
Okay. So it looks like there's a leg of it that goes all the way up to Dixie. So, and would we split that and deed that off to that parcel as well?
This right here is right.
Yeah, I'm talking about that.
This is actually a legal lot as well. So we wanted to dispose of that. It's actually part of this lot.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
So we would have to close that or leave it there and close this piece. Or one.
Yeah, I think we'd have to split it. I'd be worried about, someone on that parcel tell him to get all the cars off of his lot.
There would be some expense in Jim's fees of having to prepare the survey of the property. Then there would be some attorney's fees of preparing the deed to sell it. No, it's not a buildable lot. No, it's 25 foot. It can't be built upon. So.
And if we surplus it, are we able to sell it to that one person, or does it have to go through an auction?
Well, we would have to, if we would have to put it up for bid, advertise that we're going to sell it, and anybody could bid on it. Isn't that correct, Jackson?
I'm sorry, I walked in late.
We're talking about that street on.
Right, yes.
Yeah. We would declare it surplus and have to advertise it for sale, and anybody could bid on it. Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
The strip that goes down to the Dixie, where they got the cars parked. Okay, that belongs to the city. If there's an accident or something on that part, the city's still responsible for that.
I don't know about that, but.
Well, wouldn't cities owns it? They're responsible for anything to happen.
Are we responsible for any other traffic accidents on our city streets?
What now?
We're not necessarily responsible for any other traffic accident on our city streets.
Well, they parked the cars there probably work on it out there. What if a worker goes out there, works on a car, and he falls on it? The city's still gonna be responsible to a certain extent.
I think I agree with you that that portion of the parcel needs to go to that, you know, to the shop, whatever that is, the transmission and tire shop.
Yeah.
You know, the leg goes to there, and then the other 25-foot portion would go to the homeowner. I mean, right now, there's a for sale sign sitting all the way out by the street. I think it's for that house.
It's for this house. That's
Yeah.
how he found it, that he didn't own all. He thought he owned all the way to till he had a survey done and found that.
He said, man, I've been cutting all that grass for all this
I've been cutting all
time.
this grass for the city this whole time.
We didn't know what was for sale. They had a sign there.
Yeah.
And now he's not even really a corner lot. We've been viewing him as a corner lot, which has to do with some different things of building and so on. And he's not a corner lot.
Okay, so the process would be we deem it surplus.
And then we could advertise it for sale.
Okay.
Isn't that the way that works?
Yeah, it's just like any other surplus lot. I mean, just because it's a sort of a funky lot, but it's no different than any other process we've done. We can't just deed it to them.
Right.
But we'd separate them.
Yeah, and so part of that would also incur some costs from VOX and VOX
The one that
to.
goes to the Dixie is very valuable.
Okay.
One of those striplets is very valuable.
Okay. All right, so that's something that we'll be asking for then at the next council meeting. So with council's approval, or we'll be seeking council's approval to deem the lot, right now there's kind of a flag staff, or what do you call that? A flag lot.
Yeah.
That is that is currently owned by the city, that we would split and surplus and put it up for sale.
Just, I hate to open up a Pandora's box, but does the property owner want that? Because I could see a scenario where someone could sweep in and buy that and create
little
havoc
strip,
for that property owner.
I've never been approached
So
for that little
just devil's
strip.
advocate, why do we do anything? It's been like that for 80 years, right?
That's correct.
I mean, I don't know. I just wonder if we're opening up a can of worms there.
No, this gentleman.
Yeah, the property owner would like to buy it.
Okay, he does. The
Yeah.
property owner does want to buy it.
But, you know, you're right, the little strip, that could be.
And
that
then
could
then
be
Jim
conventional.
found that little
It
strip.
could. I mean, if I'm that property owner, I wouldn't want that necessarily to be up for bid and someone for $50 all of a sudden creating havoc for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the city's ever been. That's exactly right.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, you
I
hate
guess
to.
it could go the other way too. You know, that if the homeowner bought it, or if somebody else came in and bought it, and then that's where I kind of see a problem as well. The tire shops, they've paved that area and maintained that area forever, and if somebody told them they can't park on that and can't do anything on that, it could be just as tricky. No, just that the one property owner's requested to purchase it.
Right. So if you wanted to just, Jim would have to prepare just that one lot, leaving the flag post.
Yeah, and what if we just incorporated the flag post into the other part that the city would still own?
You can
still own it.
As right away?
You can own any or
Yeah.
all of it. It's a matter of deciding what you want to sell.
Yeah,
You
it's just
wanna
if
sell
you all,
25
as
feet of it.
council want to.
Yeah, that would
get-
probably
see it
make
to
more
be
sense.
a problem.
I think when I presented this 2 weeks ago, I think I described how it occurred, and I know we're busy here, but the whole situation was that Dixie Highway, before the underpass, was an at-grade crossing railroad. And before the highway department could build the underpass, they had to have a route to get the buses and the trucks and the traffic on the turnpike when it became a federal state highway. around the construction. So the city got Mrs. Hallam, who did the development over here, to give a 25-foot additional right-of-way to make the 50-foot right-of-way to satisfy improving Hallam Avenue to get to Thomas Street and to Mary Street to get around to Stevenson Road. I'm making the assumption that she finally realized the next year she had an unbuildable lot of 25 feet that she was going to continue to pay taxes on to the city. So she just said, here, city, take the other 25 feet too, so because I can't build on it. So they gave it to us in the deed, as opposed to the first 25 feet was dedicated for public use. The second 25 feet, she deeded to it in just as a deed, including that flag stem that the mayor was talking about, to get rid of the land because she couldn't do anything with it. So if you want to sell off any of it, you can sell off a piece of it. You can sell off the 25 feet and segregate the flag stem and sell it to the tire dealership if you want to. But the only way you can dispose of it is declare it surplus and put it up for sale, and whoever's got the highest bid is going to get it. That's where Jack's concerned about, open up a can of worms. That's what Jack suggested.
The only benefit that we discussed is that 25-foot. If they sell that house, or actually start in the spring, he's going to stop taking care of that 25-foot.
He's going to quit cutting the grass.
So we're going to have Public Works out there cutting it. That's the only benefit. I don't know, but I'm just saying that's the benefit of giving it back to that property owner, or getting it to them at some point.
Somebody could buy it just to put beehives on it.
Yep. Yep, I've got a couple dollars burning a hole in my pocket.
Just saying. Maybe we should talk to the owner and talk about the risk.
I did. I've talked to him. And he said, you know, it might be, if I sell the house before, he says, I just wanted to get it cleaned up prior to me selling out. But he says, if it doesn't, then I don't care what you all do with it.
Okay. Let's put it on the agenda and bring it to a vote at the council meeting.
Okay. Did
Was
you
there
have a
other
question?
comments?
So for right now, if somebody were to be injured on that property, who's insured? Who's insured that property?
City. It'd fall under the city's commercial policy with KLC.
Okay.
I mean, that policy would be all property.
Okay.
It's not like we have to identify.
You don't have to identify individual lots that we own, because
Heavens,
we
no.
apparently didn't know that we owned this. And then, do we have some type of estimate, or can we have some type of estimate before next council meeting of how much it's going to cost us to do this? Because this gentleman is asking us to do it, but there are costs associated, so we want to make sure we have those.
And I made him aware of that as well, that the city would incur some costs, and typically if whoever gets it, they want to at least get reimbursed for that.
Mr. Viak says sure.
Okay, thanks.
We can have those costs. I saw another hand. Oh, Mrs. Kyle?
Yeah, I had a question about maintaining a piece of property. I was told when I put my fence up on my property, and I put it at the top of a hill because they had a dog, as you know, like maybe 2 more feet down the hill. My neighbor told me that since he was maintaining my hill by chopping down my plants and putting rocks in there, that he owns that land now. And that was my question. Is that true? If somebody maintains property like this gentleman is cutting the grass, does he automatically get that land, or?
So they'd be trying to acquire it through a prescription or adverse possession. And as you know, having gotten my start in Grant County, I've litigated my fair share of adverse possession cases where someone sticks a fence up on another piece of land, and the other lawyers can help me with the elements of adverse possession: open, notorious, hostile, continuous. There we go. But the bottom line is you'd have to have a court adjudicate that still your land. You can't just say it's your land. So a court would have to say you've met the elements of adverse possession. This would not have met that because quite frankly, they thought they owned it, right? So hostility has to be an element. So they would have to, now someone would have to put a fence up, say, I understand this is the city's property, I'm fencing them off, I'm gonna maintain it for 15 years, and then I can go to court and say it's mine.
So there's no way that we can just say, hey, this gentleman deserves this piece of land, the city's just going to give it to him, or for the cost of what it would cost to deed it over to
I
him?
mean, we have to surplus it, but as Mr. Viax brought up, we certainly could reject all bids if something crazy happened in the bidding process. I mean, we could get a little creative with it.
Okay. Yeah, because I think the gentleman should have that piece of property. And in the same way with the business on the corner there, I mean, certainly, you know, he should be entitled to that for the cost of what it would take to deed it over to him. The city has no interest in those little slivers of land. You know what I'm saying? Well, I know, but you can't sell it. What are you going to put on a 25-foot strip of land? I mean, nobody's...
How long has that been like this?
Since 1929.
So we have more important things to do than to go back to 29. I do. I don't know
That's
about
true.
you, but I do.
I just wanted to know. I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
Table it.
He said table it, table it.
Table it for another 80 years?
Yeah, we'll put it. We'll talk about it at the regular council meeting and have the costs associated with it and see if council's in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, we've got items 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. These are things that I plan to discuss, and I think I would like to go through them all kind of together. And I'm not necessarily going to go in this order. I'll apologize ahead of time. So we've got some of the appointments that some of them didn't necessarily get brought up at the last meeting. And we've also made some slight changes to some of the others. So first one, the Local Board of Appeals, which is, yeah, so this is number 7. Local Appeals Board. Part of the reappointments in there that we did not address would be Mr. Viax as the chairman of that board. He was also up, and that was overlooked. And Mr. Viax has agreed that he would be willing to continue to serve on that board. Yeah, we'll vote in a special meeting.
I don't think we can do that, but it's okay. The attorney for the Court of Appeals is here. I think that our bylaws require that we have a meeting and the board itself elects the chairman.
Oh. Well, that might be why it wasn't on our radar. Okay.
I'm willing to be the chairman if they let me.
Okay, okay.
That's the local appeals board for the building code.
Yes.
Yes. That's not the one that Mr. Viax was talking about.
We're talking about the code enforcement.
He's talking about the code enforcement board.
Oh,
Being
okay.
put on the local appeals board.
The local appeals board is the building. Yeah.
Yeah,
Turn
so
your
the
mic
Local
on.
Appeals Board is the one that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn your mic on when you're speaking. I can't hear you.
Mr. Viax, he's talking to you.
I agree.
Okay, thanks. Okay, the other one is, we spoke about Mr. Cahill staying on the OKI board, and that's still the plan. But Mr. Cahill has also expressed interest in being the designee for the Board of Health as well. Right now, I'm currently the representative for the city of Erlanger, according to the bylaws of the Board of Health. But I do have the ability to assign that to a designee. Mr. Cahill has expressed that interest, and I would like to shift that over to Mr. Cahill. He has agreed. So that's something else that will be coming up here. Also, in our last meeting, we talked about for the Municipal Government League of Northern Kentucky, me being the representative and Mrs. Pitts being the alternate. And Mrs. Pitts has always expressed interest in this group. She follows the group, and I guess I would like to go ahead and change that as well to Mrs. Pitts being the representative for the city. And then I've also spoken to Mr. Montgomery about if he would be interested in being the alternate, and he has expressed interest in being the alternate. So I'd like to make a change there on the Municipal Government League, make Mrs. Pitts the representative for the city, Mr. Montgomery as the alternate. Okay. Then the Board of Adjustments. Got brought up at the last meeting that there was an issue with one of the members who was up for reappointment. I've spoken to that member, and he informed him that we would not be reappointing him. We've got a member in the audience here this evening, Amanda Peters. I've spoken with her, and she is willing to serve on the board. She was recommended to me by one of the council members. I'll talk about Mrs. Peters briefly. She's got a bachelor's degree in political science and master's in the integrative studies, concentrating on public administration, nonprofit management, and community development from NKU. She's worked professionally in corporate, nonprofit, higher education, and government arenas. She's passionate about helping communities and families. You may recognize her. She currently works for the Northern Kentucky Area Development District as the Heroin Impact Response Task Force Coordinator for 8 Northern Kentucky counties. Amanda and her husband John moved to Erlanger in 2012 in search of a family-friendly neighborhood, and they've raised their 2 kids here in Erlanger. She's excited to get more involved with her local community, and that would be my recommendation for the open seat on the Board of Adjustments. Then the PDS appointment. This has been a contentious appointment. I expressed this via an email to our council members, but I had requested that the appointment be Mrs. Fetty as the alternate for the PDS board. She was the only council member that had reached out to me and expressed interest in the board. As I'd mentioned in my email, Mrs. Fetty, I felt she was a good choice because of the work that she's already done with the board. She attended the Lou Knoll Symposium, which is put together by PDS. The Heroin Town Hall flyer walk list was something that she had worked with PDS to assemble. And the storybook of Stevenson Road, which is currently in process, is something that she's worked and she's organized with PDS. She wants to be involved for the benefit of those who put her in office. And I would certainly open it up at this time for discussion among council regarding all of these appointments. Okay, Mrs. Kyle, please.
Well, this is just my humble opinion, but I question why we have a person who is experienced with PDS and has been for years and has done a good job, Randy Blankenship, and as most of you know, he's only going to be a council person for 1 more year. Why not let him finish this year and serve? And then if Jessica is still interested next year, she could take over. Would that be a good option? I mean, I just hate to cut anybody out that's already on a board and likes what they're doing and wants to serve again. Yeah, that's just my opinion.
Ms. Fetty can go to any meeting, anything that Randy goes to. You know what I mean? She can go to any, I mean, she's very good at what she does. But when I sent you my email, I think it should be Randy. Randy wants to be on it. Randy's done a good job. She's awfully involved with him. She can go to every meeting and still talk to every person that she's talking to. That's just my opinion.
Thank you.
I concur.
Mrs. Pitts?
It doesn't matter what board it is. Jessica's on KLC, and if somebody wanted to be on KLC during her term, I would not want that to happen because if she wanted to continue that. So I think since Randy's expressed he wanted to finish out his term this year with it, as long as Jessica can still go to the meetings if she wishes, I'll be the first one to recommend that she gets it in January.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, that it's not like we're stopping his term, or we're stopping it midway. The term is up, and it's time to reappoint someone else. Or I'm sorry, not necessarily someone else. Excuse me. It's time to make a reappointment. Okay. Any other comments, Mr. Nice?
Randy's on it now. Jessica wants on it. And he's going to turn it over at the end of the year. Actually, I would think she would be good on it, and Randy, if she needs help, we got Randy to help.
All right. Any other comments?
Yes, Randy should stay in charge and Jessica should attend any meeting that she feels free to do so.
Okay.
She's so close, I didn't understand what she said. She's so close to the mic.
She was agreeing. She was agreeing with everybody else.
Good for you.
Okay, well, I've heard what council's said. Is there any other issues with any of the other appointments before we go into special meeting?
Is Ms. Deeds going on one?
Yeah, we already did that at the last meeting.
Okay, all right, and that's fine, I just didn't hear it.
I didn't necessarily, let's see, were there any others? I wasn't necessarily recapping all of them. Was she the only one? And that was the, the Code Enforcement Board, yeah, thank you. And we also had Rebecca Reckers as well, who's also on the Local Appeals Board.
Just to give you an update on Mr. Gronefeld that was on that board, he's not doing very well. He's having some health issues, so just to let anybody know that knows him.
Yeah, he certainly does need that. He told me at that time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, well, I've heard counsel. I've heard what you've said. As far as the PDS board goes, you know, I'm certainly a reasonable person. I'm a flexible person. I hear your desire, you know, and I'm one voice, and I know I certainly have the votes to outnumber me. I'm not going to push this. We'll go ahead and make Randy the alternate. It is the PDS board. There are a lot of things to fight for. This is a PDS board, and I know over the next 10 months there's plenty of things for a Republican and a Democrat to disagree on, and this certainly doesn't seem like it's worthwhile, in my opinion. So. All right, so it looks like we've got another item, if there's nothing else here, another item under administration, rules and the procedures of the meeting. Is this something that we're prepared to go through tonight? It's becoming very popular. Okay, so this is still, we're talking again about the order of the meeting and the citizen comments. I see Mrs. Skidmore's giving me a nice look. I know how much she loves this discussion.
Yeah, in all fairness, I want to jump in here, and part of this is my fault. Mr. Kramer and I have had a pretty busy January, and we have intended to kind of look at tweaking the municipal order, including things like some of the issues that came up tonight, right? Our municipal order really doesn't discuss procedures at committee meetings. And we've circulated some drafts back and forth, and between so many of the other issues that have popped up, unfortunately, Mr. Kramer and I have not really finalized that. So I would ask that we table it to the next meeting.
Okay.
All right.
I agree.
I'm sorry. My ears have stopped listening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I just was explaining our dereliction of duties here.
All right, so with this, then I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn our committee meeting. Motion by Mr. Nicely, second by Mr. Blankenship. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All right, meeting adjourned. And then with that, we will open our next meeting, our special city council meeting. This is the special city council meeting, January 16th, 2018. Immediately following the council meeting, we are opening the meeting. Call to order. Mrs. Hoffman, could you please take roll call?
Mr. Burke? Here. Mr. Cahill?
Here.
Miss Kyle?
Here.
Mr. Skidmore? Miss Sudkamp?
Here.
Miss Cahill? Mr. Montgomery? Miss Skidmore? Miss Pitts? Mr. Nicely? Miss Fetty? Here. Mr. Blankenship?
All right, we have a quorum. First item under legislation is regarding municipal order regarding the Board of Adjustment appointment.
So municipal order of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the reappointment of Steve Conley and James Molly and the appointment of Amanda Peters as members of the Board of Adjustment for the City of Erlanger.
All right, do we have a motion to accept? Motion by Mrs. Sudkamp, second by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, motion carried. Next is a municipal order regarding the PDS council appointment.
So municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the reappointment of Mayor Tyson Hermes as the representative of the City of the Northern Kentucky Planning Development Services and the reappointment of Councilmember Randy Blankenship as the alternate.
All right, do we have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mr. Montgomery. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, thank you. All right, motion carried. Next is a municipal order regarding the Municipal Government League of Northern Kentucky appointments.
So municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the appointment of Councilmember Corrine Pitts as the principal representative of the City of the Municipal Government League of Northern Kentucky and Councilmember Stephen Montgomery as the alternate.
All right, motion by Mr. Blankenship, second by Mr. Burke. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Okay, thank you. Did you hear that? Sure.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, next is a municipal order regarding the local appeals board appointment.
Municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the reappointment of Jim Viox to the local appeals board for the City of Erlanger for the enforcement of the Kentucky Building Code.
All right, motion. Motion by Mr. Montgomery, second by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. What's that? As far as the designee, you know, that would be good. We don't have a municipal order prepared for that, but that would be good to have a paper trail that says that council approves.
That's fine. We can go ahead and read it and prepare it. That's fine. So that'd be a municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving Tom Cahill as the designee of the Northern Kentucky Health Department.
All right, motion by Mrs. Cahill, second by Kathy Cahill. Any discussion?
Right.
All in favor say aye.
We'll clean that up.
I'll abstain.
All right, great, thank you. All right, motion carried. All right, with that then.
And Mr. Montgomery is the backup, correct? Was that right on that one? On health? No?
No.
Okay, all right. All right, that's right. Hard to keep it all straight.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Burke, second by Mr. Nicely. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All right, motion carried, meeting adjourned.
Mayor, who made the motion and second?
Motion